Working moms are dealing with burnout at higher rates than almost any other group in the workforce. The reasons for this are complicated, but the impact is pretty clear. So, today I'm going to talk with someone who knows what's really happening and what might actually help. And this is the HR Hub. Keep listening to learn about this topic and all kinds of things related to HR. You can also find me on YouTube. So today my guest is Dr. Rosina McAlpine. She is a work and family well-being expert who works with HR leaders to build family-friendly workplaces and also runs a company called Win-Win Parenting. She's often asked to speak on the topic and has developed some workplace parenting programs that help organizations support their working parents. Hello, Dr. Rosina. How are you?
Hello, I'm great. It's great to be here. Thanks for the opportunity.
Well, thanks for coming on. It's very timely in my case because my daughter is currently out of school because the teachers are striking. And so every parent, you know, in my province is struggling with that issue and struggling with parents, and probably a good proportion of them are stressed out. Um, but to kick us off, my first question is I referred to moms, that moms are experiencing more burnout. So, can you put this into context for us? And are fathers as stressed out as moms?
What we know from all the research, all the data, is that mums tend to take the greatest share of childcare and home care, even if they're working. So while we have made some leaps and bounds in equality where we get dads involved, at this point in time, the statistics don't lie. Mums are taking the greatest share of home and childcare and working at the same time. So they're suffering higher rates of burnout. And of course, sorry to all the dads who are in there working hard. I know that you're experiencing this as well.
Hmm. But I also, as I canvass my friends and everything, I know that the moms are more stressed out for some reason. Maybe you have facts about this too. A lot of men, not all men, but a lot of men, they're able to compartmentalize, tune it out. They just don't get so gripped in it. Do you know why that is?
It's true. One of the things that we talk about often with mums is the mental load that they're carrying, all the organizing, all the putting things into place. And so one of the tips that I definitely say to mums is as you get it out of here and onto the page, you're in a very good position to delegate. So there's your list, and there's all the different people that you can help enlist to help you with all of those tasks.
So right now, how do you see organizations trying to help? And is what they're doing actually effective?
Look, there's been a movement for quite a long time now in terms of well-being programs. Organizations have realized that if you're not doing well personally, emotionally, socially, financially, in other words, the whole person comes to work. So for a long time now, there have been work programs to try and improve employee well-being. Unfortunately, they're not always targeted to working parents. There are some organizations doing a great job, but the majority of organizations are trying to do too much by having like general programs that don't help everybody. And that's why we've still got working parents having these high statistics of burnout and not doing very well. So, yes, they're trying, but perhaps they're sort of missing the mark.
It's a common complaint of wellness programs that they're trying to help everyone, and in helping everyone, they're not really helping anyone, or not helping anyone a lot. Uh so how did you I mean, you have an interesting story. So I do want to give you the opportunity to tell your story.
So I came to win-win parenting two different paths. The first path, of course, being a mum. So our son's almost 18. So I've been through kind of all the stages. And when I first became a working mum, I went from competent person who was an associate professor at university dealing with teams and thousands of students to incompetent first time mum, right? So I realized pretty quickly, I was in the hospital, and the very first day he was born, I got such conflicting advice. one nurse said, you need to feed your baby on demand. And then the second one was, oh, you know, you need to feed on demand. The other one's, no, you need to feed every 4 hours and get them into a routine. And as a new mum, I'm crying my eyes out. What am I supposed to do? And so I wanted to find out what I was supposed to do. And as a researcher, and I was on parental leave at the time, I had 12 months off, I started reaching out to leading experts all over the world to find out the information. And that's where the journey began. I'll just give one quick example. So I found the Journal of Lactation. And in the Journal of Lactation, I was told that ch- children who are fed on demand have an up to 5-point higher IQ. And I thought to myself, why does every parent not know that? And that was irrespective of whether it was breastfed or bottle fed. It was the fact that they weren't hungry or in fight or flight. So I put together a book. Do you mind if I just go off screen, get my book and come back? Is that okay?
For sure. I'm going to speed up this part.
Wait one sec. I'm sorry. This book is called Inspired Children, How the Leading Minds of Today Raise Their Kids. And that started the journey. And then after that, as an associate professor coming back to work, doing research on work and family integration, this is where I saw the lack of programs that were specifically developed for working parents. Let's face it, being told, go and meditate or have a break. You've got a kid, you got to peel off your leg. You can't even go to the bathroom without having a piece of paper fly underneath or some knocking. So I realized that, the demands of managing work and family life were quite different to someone who doesn't have those responsibilities. And that's where I created Win-Win Parenting. So that's the short, long story of Win-Win Parenting.
I'm quite sure I was not able to go to the bathroom by myself for 2 years, and I am not complaining. I love my daughter, she's awesome, but also all that advice about take time for yourself, whatever it was, I was like, how? How? I have to endure a lot of crying for that to happen, and that is worse. Anyway, okay. Um, so, you've also shared some or told me that there are some very interesting stats and facts
Mm.
about the mindset and the mental well-being of working parents. Tell me about those.
It's really concerning. Like, we have to stop the laughter now and really go into serious mode because doesn't matter where you look, whether you look in the UK, Europe, America, Canada, Australia, New Zealand, wherever you look, where there are working parents, what we're finding is they've got the highest levels of stress. Makes sense, balancing work and family life. They've got the lowest mental health scores. They've got the highest rates of burnout. In other words, for organizations, we are talking highest psychosocial risk groups. And what does that mean? Well, obviously, it's not good for the individual, harms their well-being, but it also harms the workplace because now we've got greater presenteeism or absenteeism, greater turnover, lower productivity, greater costs when it comes to mental health, physical well-being for the organization. So we can see that if we don't address this really frightening trend, where the statistics just don't lie, we're going to have problems not only at home, but also in the workplace, which workplaces are really feeling, which is why there's more demand now for managing those psychosocial risks and actually putting programs into place that do support working parents to thrive.
Uh, so you say that parents aren't doing well. I've also heard, not from you, but through other, things I've read, that the way we parent right now is like we're doing it to ourselves. Basically over parenting our kids, that we're creating our own stress. Do you have any thoughts about that?
So, what we know is that in the early years, attachment is very important. It's part of development of the child. And so, being present, being responsive is actually an important part of a child's feeling of security, sense of self. And we know that those early years create a very good foundation for later years. We absolutely know that from the research.
Hmm.
Having said that, of course, there are those, cartoons with the helicopter parent, floating above the child.
Yes.
And what we're really looking for when it comes to parenting is we absolutely know we can put our hands over our hearts. I've been working with over 100,000 parents over, a period of a decade. So I can tell you this hand over heart. Every parent cares for their child and they want to parent in the best way that they can. But they can only do the best they can with the knowledge, the skills, the understanding that they've got. So, this is where the more working parents get the right evidence-based information, the
Mhm.
better decisions they're gonna make at home. Now,
Mhm.
sometimes it means being very involved, and other times it means stepping back and letting our child start taking responsibility and making decisions. And that's a delicate balance, as I'm sure you know. At the moment, I've got a teenager, right? And there's a lot of hands off, but there has to be some hands on because we know that this is one of the most dangerous periods of life. So, parents can't just stand back because they know if they let 3 or 4 people in the car while the teenager's driving, it's a greater risk of accident. So, there's this lovely balance all the way through from when that baby first arrives right till they leave home, and I'm sure parents who are listening to this going, "It doesn't even stop when they leave home," because that's true, we're always gonna be parents. So, what I say is that there is a delicate balance there of how much to be involved and how much to step back, letting our children grow and learn in the world.
So, something I've heard for sure from people, particularly those who don't have kids, is they feel a little bit resentful about all the attention that parents get, but then also are pointing out that, well, you chose to have a kid. So isn't it your problem? And then on top of that, you do also see some parents who do a great job somehow, I don't know how, of managing parenting and working. And yet there's other people, they're like a train wreck. Why is this the organization's problem?
Absolutely. Look, if we talked about this 20 years ago, there was a very clear boundary. That's home and that's work, and that's all there is. Nowadays, with diversity, equity, and inclusion, we can't just single out working parents. There are so many different groups of employees that are going to need not equality, but equity. There's big difference between making it equal for everyone or
Mhm.
equality. When we're talking about workplaces, we need everyone who's working to be safe, to be at their best. Now that doesn't excuse, so I'm not excusing, if you're not making the effort, if you're just, haven't, got your act together because you could not have your act together whether you're a single or whether you're a parent, right? So it's not that.
That's true.
But having programs that enable every employee to succeed in the workplace, to succeed personally, mental, physical,
Mhm.
social, emotional well-being, and that then actually is a very important part of society. So we've talked about the individual level, the workplace level, because when you're doing well, you are productive, you're inspired, you work well with teams. It's so lovely to see that. But there's a bigger question. So that person who's complaining about the working parent, okay, let's just
Mhm.
say they are there.
Mhm.
Um, what they have to realize is that that person is raising the next generation. Now, if that person wants to have a future doctor, a future baker, a future electrician, a future builder, I think they better start thanking and supporting the working parent because in their old age, these people's kids are going to be looking after them, right? In the
True.
world. That is how society works. So I say it a bit in jest, but actually it's not funny at all. We want to support the individual so that we've got healthy families. We want to support a healthy workplace, which is going to in turn create happy, healthy, a contributing society for all to benefit from.
Mhm. Mhm. I get that, and I totally think it's a valid argument. I'm quite sure it won't work on some people, but that's the way the world is too. That's people being individuals.
It is, but you know what? I think the more we talk about it and the more people actually have this conversation, the more, you know what I mean? Like it goes, actually, that does make sense. I am going to get old and I'm going to need a podiatrist. I am going to get old and I'm going to need someone to, maybe care for me. And these kids are going to be those people. So over time, I'm hoping that we will change the mindset, not just of individuals that are complaining, but also workplaces, really change workplaces.
Mhm. Yeah. And I like that equity angle. I've never thought about equity in that context, but that, makes some sense to me. So, to what employers can do, how can employers reasonably, without spending a fortune, help reduce the burnout amongst working parents?
I think the way we need to look at it is return on investment because you're right. Organizations do have to have a financial and a social um, view on this. What we do know is that while it varies, but targeted programs can have anywhere from 2 to 4 return on investment. In other words, it's that whole adage of prevention is much cheaper and better than cure, right? Once
Mm,
you've got a working parent who's burnt out, who's home, who's not working, who you have to replace, who you have to give all the support to because it's part of workplace, requirements, is going to be a lot more expensive replacing them, as we know, than it is putting programs into place. Now, what are the steps? So I just wanted to start there. It's cheaper to do the right thing, is what I'm trying to say, right? So,
mhm.
what are the steps? I've put together a 5-point guide for organizations because we can't make it too complex, like you said. Step number one is data. You absolutely have to know what's happening with your working parents. What are their biggest challenges? What is their mental health? What are the concerns they've got, etc. So you start with the data on risks and you map it against psychosocial well-being, right? So you start with data. The next thing is train the leaders. I feel for leaders because if they haven't got children of their own, if they haven't got the same challenges that other people have got, they can't manage these psychosocial safety risks. So step one, find out the data, what you're dealing with. Number two, train your leaders, give them the power to make the changes, to do the things that they need to do. To introduce step number three, the targeted programs that create equity, not equality, but equity. In other words, what are the programs that working parents need? Balancing work and family is very different for an individual who's looking after themselves versus an individual who's looking after children and nowadays, a lot of the time, elder care as well. The sandwich generation. I'm looking after
Mhm.
my kids and my parents, and I'm trying to, juggle it all. So, targeted programs for managing work and family, for dealing with all the challenges like child mental health through the roof, bullying through the roof, what does a healthy diet look like, right? How much sleep do they need? Do you see what I mean? And you want research based, you want evidence based information, not, oh, my friend said that worked, so I'm just going to try that. That's the hit or miss approach, and we certainly don't want that. So, targeted programs, number three. Number four, you can put all the policies and procedures into place that you want. But if you haven't got a family friendly workplace culture, if you've got people complaining like, why are the working parents getting extra help or flexible hours and we're not? Or if individuals can't say, my child's getting an award today at school, I'm going to move my report to tonight instead of at 4 o'clock today because I'll be at school, then we don't have a truly family friendly workplace culture. If there's not a feeling of community, like we celebrate working parents, right? We go, hey, it's working parent day, bring the kids in, let's get together, that sort of thing, where it's truly a place where people do feel like they belong. So that's number four. And number five, monitor, evaluate, report, because what gets measured gets actioned. And so there's my 5-step plan. And I'm very happy to share that with you if you'd like to give it to anybody who would request it. I'm very happy to offer you that 5-step plan, 5-step actions that people can put HR leaders, people leaders can put into place to make that positive difference.
I will follow up with you about the link to that and I'll put it in the show notes. Now, because I have been there, as I've already alluded to a whole number of times, uh, if a parent is watching this and struggling to balance work and parenting, like we need more advice, but hey, you're an expert. What advice do you have?
I love that you say that. Do you know I start every one of my programs saying, "I'm not here to give you advice, just good information, ideas, and strategies, because I'm sure you've got more advice than you want." So, in the vein of giving ideas, strategies,
Right.
the very first thing is self-care. And I know we say that a lot, but one of the biggest, challenges for working parents is to start with self-care. And why do I say that? I say that because when we're happy, healthy, and balanced, let's say, we respond to our children instead of react. We respond in the workplace and delegate and make so many more better decisions than when we're high on edge and trying to get everything done. And we make more mistakes than at home and at work. So the first thing I would say is take care of yourself. And that doesn't have to mean, take 4 days at a spa. I know that's unrealistic. It'd be nice, but it's unrealistic. So little things like micro breaks where you go and have a cup of tea, you go outside and stand on the grass and look at the sky, as long as there's not snow, I guess, on the ground. Do you know what I'm saying? Like get out
Yep.
into nature, spend 5 or 10 minutes by yourself. Go if you've got a young child and they're napping, nap. Nap with them, even if it's 10 or 15 minutes. So number 1, self-care, whatever that looks like for you. Number 2, take that stress away from not knowing what to do, because that's stressful, by getting good information, strategies, resources, so that when you've got a challenge, you know that you've got ideas and things that you can do. Because
Mhm.
I know even if I had a challenge, if I had ideas and knew that I could get there to solve it, I was so much better than when I don't know what to do. This is crazy. I don't know if we're going to solve this. Do you know? So just having a strategy and having information and someone you can rely on. And number 3, they're there for a long time. You've got them for a long time. Just take your time and give them all the life skills you can as they go, because you want to do yourself out of a job, right?
Right.
Those would
Right.
be my 3 little bits of information that might be helpful to working parents.
Yeah. I could ask so many more questions, but I will hold myself back. Like, okay, I'm going to ask you, what's your go to parenting book? How can they find you and your parenting book? And anything else you know of that will help parents manage that balance between parenting and work?
So I've got 2 websites. One's for workplaces and one's for individuals. So if it's an HR manager looking for, the 5 steps or information or strategies, it's winwinparenting.com. Winwinparenting.com. There's all the information there. There's blogs, there's podcasts, there's everything to help with work and family life, building a family-friendly workplace. If you're a working parent, you might want to go to drrosina.com. That's just drrosina.com, where I've got a lot of blogs and, lots of information there. So hopefully that will give you all the information that you need, whether you're a professional or whether you're just a working parent or not. Shouldn't say just. You're an amazing working parent contributing to the economy and also to the future of humanity. Thank you very much.
Well, thanks, Rosina. That was somewhat cathartic, actually. Like I say, I love parenting and I love my daughter, but it doesn't mean it's not hard. I am thinking about the equity thing you referred to, and it was just a novel way of talking about equity. We usually talk about it in terms of DEI, but when we think about it in terms of parenting, it does sort of spark some different thoughts for me, anyways. And what about you out there? Did this cause you to reflect on something? If so, what was that? Please share in the comments. And we've reached the end of this episode. Thanks for listening out there. We'll catch you next time when I talk with another amazing guest.